It's an opinion that should be kept to himself or herself, and you should avoid any way in giving any indications as to what your opinion may be. After that, there's the issue of confidentiality. An interpreter really should not repeat to any other party what they hear in the courtroom. You really should go to all lengths possible to maintain yourself as an independent and impartial party. And if you were to give statements that might tend to show bias one way or the other.
Impartiality affects interpreters in other ways, too.
Among other things, this implies that you shouldn't be accepting payment from anyone except the court for work done in the courtroom.
Some, but not all, courts have equipment to facilitate and improve the quality of interpretation and give the interpreter more flexibility. With an infrared system, which can be portable or fixed, the interpreter listens to the courtroom PA system. The interpretation is carried by way of an infrared beam from a control box to a small headset worn by the defendant. It's the same principle as a remote control for a television set. Another advantage of such equipment is that the interpreter is physically removed from the defendant, which reduces the possibility of the defendant initiating casual conversation with the interpreter. In the courtroom, the judge presides over the conduct of the proceedings. He or she maintains order and makes rulings on points of law. The attorney representing the government, which has brought charges against the defendant, sits at a table facing the judge's bench. The defendant and his attorney sit at another table. In a jury trial, the jury decides the facts of a case based on the presentation of evidence and the testimony of witnesses. In a bench trial, there is no jury. It is the judge who decides the facts. Witnesses testify about the facts that are in dispute. They testify from a witness stand, which faces both parties. Testimony is part of the permanent record of the proceeding. This record ensures that there can be no doubt about what occurred in the courtroom.
Yes. Ms. Chin, would you please repeat your question?
Also note that judges are always addressed as Your Honor.
Certainly, Your Honor. Did Mr. Smith know you were going to drive his car to Santa Fe?
In most cases, only the English rendition of testimony in a second language becomes part of the permanent court record. Testimony is oral evidence given by a witness or the defendant under oath, as opposed to non-testimony, such as the judge's comments during a hearing. The Court Interpreters Act requires testimony in a second language to be interpreted in the consecutive mode, except the judge may authorize simultaneous interpretation of testimony if it will aid the efficient administration of justice. This exception can only be made after a hearing on the record, otherwise both questions and answers are interpreted consecutively.
What happened next after you had checked into the hotel?
Entonces, ¿qué ocurrió después de que se registró en el hotel?
Bueno, no sabía si Juan estaba por allí, así que bajé al restaurante a ver si estaba trabajando.
Well, I didn't know if Juan was around, so I went down to the restaurant to see if he was working.
And did you find him there?
¿Y lo encontró allí?
No, no lo encontré. Les pregunté a varios empleados, inclusive al barman, pero nadie lo había visto.
No, I didn't find him. I asked several of the staff, including the bartender, but no one had seen him.
And what did you do then?
¿Y entonces qué hizo?
Pues suponía que tarde o temprano tenía que regresar, así que me comí algo.
Well, I supposed that sooner or later he had to come back, so I had something to eat.
Do you remember what you had for dinner?
¿Recuerda usted lo que cenó?
Sí, una ensaladita y una parmesana de berenjena y un té helado.
All of the witness's words must be interpreted. The interpreter must not paraphrase or summarize what the witness says. What we'll hear next is an incorrect example of interpretation.
And how long were you in the restaurant?
¿Y cuánto tiempo estuvo en el restaurante?
No lo van a creer. Estaba tan lento. Tomó casi una hora para que llegara la comida. Después, para que comí, para que pedir cheque, para que pedir sencillo. Yo estaba allí, debe haber sido... Bueno, yo estaba allí por lo menos 2 horas.
I was there 2 hours.
The interpreter is not to summarize or paraphrase what is said. Let's watch this same testimony again to hear how it must be interpreted.
And how long were you in the restaurant?
¿Y cuánto tiempo estuvo en el restaurante?
Uy, no lo van a creer. Estaba tan lento. Tomó casi una hora para que llegara la comida. Después que comí, que pedir cheque, que pedir sencillo. Yo estaba allí, debe haber sido... Bueno, yo estaba allí por lo menos 2 horas.
Oh, you won't believe it was so slow. It took almost an hour before I got my meal. Then by the time I ate, got my check, asked for my change, I was there, it must have been, well, I was there at least 2 hours.
The Court Interpreters Act requires that everything else, such as testimony in English and exchanges between attorneys, be interpreted in the simultaneous mode, except as otherwise directed by the judge. Only the defendant hears this interpretation. As with testimony, everything must be interpreted, and the interpreter may not summarize or paraphrase what is said.
Are there motions?
Yes, there are motions.
And what are the motions?
There are motions of the transcripts of the wiretap.
So we'll have to try the motions. When do you want to try the motions?
We could do it the week of October 13th. What about the 21st at 4:30? That's the week I begin a trial of the Spalding case.
Then what if we put it off until next month?
What day do you want?
My calendar is free the second week of that month.
I can do it then also, with the exception of Friday that week.
An accurate rendition of all that is said during a courtroom proceeding requires the interpreter to maintain the level or register of language used by the speaker. The interpreter must, to the fullest extent possible, preserve the style, idioms, and idiosyncrasies of each speaker, reproducing any nuances and ambiguities.
Now, Miss Lopez, you have been to Miss Wolf's home, haven't you?
Ahora, señora López, usted ha estado en la casa de la señora Wolf, ¿no es así?
Sí.
Yes.
How would you describe her home?
¿Cómo describiría su casa?
Pucha, qué casota, tan bonita y con mucha luz. Está bien adornadita, con telas y esculturas súper bonitas y con todo tipo de maquinaria. Ay, está recontra chévere.
Well, her house is really something. Big, so pretty, lots of light, decorated with lots of fabrics and sculptures. Very pretty. It's got every kind of machine. Her house is totally cool.
Our challenge as interpreters is to translate into exactly that same style of language, because we don't have the flexibility. We're not supposed to be able to edit or change what is being spoken, and if we change the level of language, then we change the meaning.
Interpreters must simply convert any source message as is into the target language. Imprecise or awkward language should never be rendered as flawless English, as we'll hear next.
Of course, I didn't want there to be any misunderstanding about that.
What was your reaction to the salary he offered?
¿Y cuál fue su reacción al salario que le ofreció?
Bueno, mucho más mejor de lo que yo esperaba.
Oh, it was much better than I expected.
How much better was it than you had
Let's listen to the same testimony again and hear how it should be interpreted.
Claro que sí. Yo no quería que hubiera ningún malentendido sobre eso.
Of course, I didn't want there to be any misunderstanding about that.
What was your reaction to the salary he offered?
¿Y cuál fue su reacción al sueldo que él ofreció?
Era mucho más mejor de lo que yo esperaba.
It was much more better than I expected.
How much better was it than you had expected?
Even if a witness is evasive, repetitive, unresponsive, or simply makes no sense, the interpreter must render an equivalent version into English.
Please proceed.